Hi, I'm Dr. John Azar-Dickens with Enforce Health, and we're going to talk today a little bit about mindfulness. I have with me Angela Smith. She's a licensed professional counselor. She does a lot of work with law enforcement officers and first responders. And the topic we're going to address is mindfulness. Mindfulness training, it's very much talked about today. It's an issue that a lot of people are discussing, specifically related to therapy and how to integrate it into therapy, how to learn how to practice it, how to learn how to do it. And so my question is going to be, or I have many questions, but one is, it just seems kind of weird. And a lot of people say, it sounds like hypnosis or something like new agey or creepy. Let's first talk about what is mindfulness. What does that mean? And how is it helpful at all?
Well, it's mindfulness is about being present in the present moment, being mindful of the moment. And it's an intentional focus on the here and now. And basically what that means is we pay attention to what we're doing in the moment that we're in. What that does is it helps us to focus on what we're doing and all the background noises in our head that, are talking to us, and all the thoughts that we're having, because we have lots of thoughts and we want to have lots of thoughts because it's how our brain works. But when we intentionally focus on one thing, like driving or breathing, then we focus on that exclusively, which will decrease stress. It helps us to slow down our breathing. It helps us to be focused on what we're doing and do it to the best of our ability. So basically, we're intentionally focusing on one thing. It increases our focus and our attention, and it helps us to kind of be present and kind of realize that the chatter in our back of our heads they keep going on, but we can be present with where we are right now. Like, you can sit there and you can drive, and you can notice how it feels, and you can notice what you see, and you can, what are you listening to, and be present with your drive. And then, lots of things in the back of your head keep going on, but you're just bringing it all back to the single focus. This is increasing your focus and help you to relax.
So instead of thinking about, all day long we go through our day, and a lot of our mind is focused on what we have to do next in that day, the task that we're doing at the moment, something going on in the past. So we're thinking about ourselves or other people, mm-hmm. or just other problems or all these other issues. And so the mind is just racing throughout the day and bouncing from thing to thing. And so this is a way of kind of clearing all that out and quieting the mind and being focused on only the moment. For how long? Is it a short period of time? It's not like, if you're doing meditation where you're trying to do that for extended periods of time, that can be difficult. But this is really short term, right?
Right, and this is basically you're building a muscle. You're just conditioning yourself to do one thing, intentionally doing one thing, being mindful of a feeling that comes up, being mindful of a task that you're doing, being mindful. And then this way, like you said before, you're staying out of the past and you're staying out of the future, but you're being in the moment, because it helps us to, number one, decrease the stress of, if we think about what how they're going to feel about us, or think about what we're going to do in the future, we're kind of muddled with not being able to think presently. And so this helps us to kind of help with our concentration, helps with our intense focus, and it kind of alleviates some of the tension that we might have from thoughts of how, performance or how we're going to do. We can do it typically. It's a practice that you can start off like at 1 or 2 minutes a day, and then build as you need it.
And you do it multiple times. You might just do it multiple times throughout the day.
Right.
So it's the practice of taking a few moments to just be mindful of what you're feeling, what's going on around you at that moment.
Absolutely.
And getting in the habit of doing that. Mm-hmm. And it just, it's amazing because the research I read on it, my God, there's research supporting it for depression, for anxiety, for concentration. There's so much strong empirical support, research support mm-hmm. for it. And you hear about it so much, and it's sort of the buzzword now in mental health. Everybody's talking about mindfulness training. But if I'm an officer out there and I hear it and I hear how great it is, I don't know where to start. Do I have to go to a therapist to learn how to do it? Is it something I can teach myself? Can I learn about it on the internet? How does all that?
Well, you can learn about it on the internet, or you can read a book about it. There's a lot of information out there about mindfulness, but it's just an intentional practice. You can come to therapy, and then that be your target is learning how to be in the moment. and it'll help with your focus, because we have a lot of things going on in our head, and being able to be present helps us to think clearer because we are sharper. We teach our brains to do multitasking, and honestly, we're not really good at multitasking. We need to focus on one task at a time. So when a police officer or a fireman or someone comes to me to learn mindfulness, they're in that moment. Now, a lot of times, people who like adrenaline, who jump off buildings and things like that, it's very similar to mindfulness, because that adrenaline, you have to be in the moment because it helps preserve your life, and in that way you can't be anxious. You can be, but you're in that moment.
Yeah, they keep it under control.
You keep it under control because it's to save your life.
Well, for officers, let's say on a shift of 10 hours, 12 hours, however long, I mean, they're having to be vigilant constantly. If they're not, if they're out on a call, they're having to be vigilant about their surroundings, what's going on, who they're interacting with, kind of assessing the situation constantly and making adjustments to deal with these folks they're dealing with, and being alert to potential threats. If you're sitting in the car and doing paperwork or whatever, you're constantly mindful of everything around you. But it's not a relaxing, calming type of mindfulness. It's more stress-producing, anxiety-provoking, and you're always having to be kind of on alert the whole time you've got that uniform on, because you're a potential threat.
Absolutely.
Or somebody's potentially going to do something to harm you. So how is that different? I mean, I'm mindful of my surroundings in that moment, but it's not really relaxing. So that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about creating a scenario where you're relaxed and it's a relaxing kind of focus rather than a vigilance kind of thing.
Right. And there's a difference. The vigilance about keeping yourself safe, being alert to the possibility that there's danger around the corner, but also the mindfulness helps on the other spectrum about how to when you can, to relax your body and to be mindful of what your body's telling you. Okay. Because you can stay in that vigilance, the hypervigilance, outside the uniform. And that's where you see the problems a lot of times, is when that hypervigilance doesn't shut down or shut off.
Okay, so I'm doing it every day on my part of my job, and then when I'm home, I'm hypervigilant, overly paying attention. So when I'm not working, if I practice that mindfulness, it will kind of bring me back to reality as to where I am. And at home, I'm doing other things, and it's a different surrounding, different environment. I've got relationships with spouses or significant others, children, and what have you. So that's when it should be practiced and when it's most effective, I guess.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if I want to do this, and this is something I want to take on, the first step would be to research it further, read more about it, kind of look at some information on YouTube perhaps about how to engage in the practice. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it from what I understand. You can there's music you can listen to, there's guided mindfulness training you can do where somebody kind of guides you through the steps. I mean, there's all of that, right?
Right. And it's easy to learn about the mindfulness because there's so much literature out there, and there's different ways to be mindful, but basically you just realize that you're in the moment. There's some tips on YouTube about how to practice it, and that's bringing all your senses into it, all your five senses, your hearing, your smell, your taste, your touch, and you basically you're talking to yourself as you bring those senses in. That's one way of being mindful.
And if I'm an officer and I'm addressing or dealing with depression, maybe even some suicidal thoughts, some anxiety problems, relationship problems, and I've heard about how helpful this is, and I want to seek out counseling. So I would contact a counselor and say that this is something I'm interested in learning about, and ask if they have experience in that kind of in that area. Yes,
you can just ask the questions that you're most wanting to know. Do you work with first responders, officers? How well do you do mindfulness or meditation or anything? You can ask any kind of question that helps you to know that these people could help you.
But that's where you would seek it out. Would be through some sort of counseling if you want to do it more intensely and stay with it more consistently.
In depth, and you do the practicing in the sessions and talk about what how it will help, and then kind of gauge it. You can practice it and then come back in and we kind of do some experiments with it and see what it's like for you, maybe tweak it if we need to tweak
It's
it.
going to be different for everybody how they do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, so mindfulness, it's a weird sounding thing, but again, there's a lot of research on it. It's very strong as a treatment intervention, and so I strongly encourage you, if depression, anxiety, stress issues are something that's going on with you, that you seek that out as a possible remedy. Huh?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for talking with us today.
All
I
right,
appreciate it.